You're listening to Pathways and Means, a podcast that inspires and shows people how to tap into their creative spirit. We sit down with leaders and makers in every industry to talk about their process, what inspires them, and about how to build incredible things with the power of creativity. The future belongs to the creators, so come join us. This is Pathways and Means.
Welcome everybody to Pathways and Means. Hope you're doing well out there, having a good start to the year. We've got a little bit of distance into 2022. Hope it's treating you nicely. It's treating us nicely here at CPM. And we're here for another discussion on Pathways and Means. We've been doing a little bit of talking amongst ourselves about just where our priorities are for this year. And one of the priorities that we're hitting as a team is wellness. And we got to thinking about what does wellness exactly look like in this sort of, grind culture and this sort of small business entrepreneur artist space. It can be really difficult not to focus entirely on the day-to-day grind of your business or whatever you're trying to create. But we here at CPM and here at Pathways and Means definitely think that a focus on wellness and a holistic approach to life, being kind to yourself, is very important. But these might not be concepts that are very familiar to everybody, so we thought we would bring in an expert. So we brought in friend of the program, friend of CPM, Megan, who is at MindfulMego on Instagram. Megan, please say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And we thought we would go ahead and have a discussion this morning from an expert perspective on wellness, mindfulness, and a holistic approach to life and everything in between. So Megan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
So how about we start with just some definitions, kind of, clear the groundwork, see where we're headed together. We're talking about wellness, but you've talked kind of extensively about mindfulness. So I wonder if you could give us a cursory definition of each and maybe what separates one from the other.
Absolutely. A lot of times when I think about mindfulness and wellness, I think about them being a practice. So mindfulness is the practice of becoming aware of sensations in your body, your environment, what's around you. So the practice of awareness, that's what I think of when I think of mindfulness. Allowing things to be from a non-judgmental place, just allowing things to flow. So what's happening around you, and whatever it is, that's what it is. And then the wellness, my definition of that is more of a practice of our well-being. So we are practicing doing things that generate well-being in our life.
So it seems like there would be considerable overlap between these two different categories. Do you think it's possible to have one without the other?
I think that you can try to practice your well-being, wellness without mindfulness, but what's going to take you really, really far in cultivating a greater degree of well-being in your life is through the practice of mindfulness. Because if you're not really in tune with, for example, what's going on in your body or what's going on around you in your life, then it's hard to really make conscious decisions about what's going to be in the greatest good for you and your wellness.
So it seems like we're talking about, on the one side, wellness is the daily investment into your own well-being, whether that's, would you include like physical well-being, spiritual and mental well-being in that same category?
Absolutely. When I use the term well-being, I am always referring to physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being, because all of those different domains really affect our well-being. Our well-being is interconnected. It's made up of multiple layers, and those layers include the fact that we have physical health, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, and all of those intertwine.
So it seems like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like well-being might be the general space where we're working toward our health, and mindfulness is more about our awareness of ourselves.
Correct.
Okay, well, I think that's a good working definition for everybody. Well, we'll dive more deeply into both of those topics as we go on through the program. But for anybody who might know, tell us a little bit about yourself. How are these concepts, how did they become important to you? What's your story?
Thank you so much for asking. I would say that I really made a big change in my life when I studied abroad in Australia. And it was one of the first times that so first off, I had grown up being an athlete. So I played softball for well over a decade, played volleyball and basketball in there too. And once I stopped playing sports and I transitioned into more of like my own individualism away from being an athlete, I was like, okay, now that I'm not using sports to be motivated, for example, to work out or to drink water or to eat healthy, what is my motivation, my why? And for a while, I didn't really know. And then when I studied abroad in Australia, I started reading this book. The book that I started reading was A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I'd also, because I was studying abroad, like had more free time. So I was like reading this book. And then I also had made the decision that I really wanted to start running. And also what better way than to run on the like beach, you know, in some of the most beautiful places in the world. So I started running. I'm reading this book, and then all of a sudden I'm realizing like, oh my gosh, all these people around me are like vegan and vegetarian, and I've never really like explored that before. So I started like eating vegetarian while I was there and running every day and getting out in the sun. And I'm reading this book, A New Earth, which is all about becoming aware and being in the present moment. And all of that was really this catalyst for a change in consciousness, a change in my awareness or my mindfulness towards my life, and that I generate that inside of myself, and that was never actually generated by the sports that I had played when I was younger, that I was the person making those decisions, not the well, yes, of course, the circumstances that I was in, but not that in its entirety or totality.
And so that realization compared to before and then since then, how has that different state of mind changed your life?
Oh my gosh, it's changed my life in so many ways, because I believe that the more aware we become, so the more mindful of our life we are, the more opportunities we have to make choices. Because once you understand what you're working with, you get to make a decision. Do I keep doing what it is that I'm doing, because cause and effect? Do I want to keep getting the same results? Or is there something that I want to make a change with based off of the results that I'm getting right now?
Mm-hmm. So as far as our audience, we have a lot of sort of creative types and people who are starting businesses and that sort of thing. And we hear a lot about and experience a lot of, there don't seem to be enough hours in the day, essentially. And I know that you're a person who's out being, studious and starting your own business enterprises and that kind of thing. How do you strike that balance? It takes time and it takes personal investment to focus on wellness and mindfulness, but it also, there's just so much to do throughout the day. How do you thread that needle?
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked me this question, because I think one of the most important things for wellness is a work-life balance. And especially with our modern day society, we have strayed so far away from what even is a good work-life balance. And again, I think that's kind of dependent on the individual and what their goals are, and really what is being asked of them in their day-to-day life, but overall, having some sort of, I call it a daily devotion, so devotion to yourself, is so important to maintaining a regulated state. And all I mean by a regulated state is a state where we're in control of our stress levels, because when our stress levels get out of whack, that's when we start engaging in behaviors that are probably going to be maladaptive or not take us to the places that we want to go.
And so for somebody, if someone were to come to you and basically say, I want to focus on my wellness, but I'm just so busy, what's some advice that you'd give them?
One of the first things that I always try to do when somebody tells me that they are too busy is to really look at where their values are at, because when we value our output more than we are valuing our input, we are lacking a depth or a richness to our experience. Because the moment that we take time to slow down, we actually end up getting more done. So it's really more of a perspective shift than it really is about actual time in a day. Because if you, like my personal experience with working with people and in my own personal life, the moment that I switched from I'm too busy to, okay, where can I make time? I was able to actually get more done, because the amount of time that it took me to take a break, to meditate or to work out or to get the sun on my face, to go out in nature, when I came back to my work, I actually ended up becoming more productive and getting more things done. So what takes more time? Like trying to crank something out in 4 hours, but being completely mentally and emotionally exhausted, or spending 1 hour away and then getting 3 hours of hardcore work done? Which one is really more time efficient?
Oh, absolutely. And there is something interesting about this in terms of, having sort of, I've started going down this same path where I'm just focusing a little bit more on my own wellness and mindfulness. And it's interesting when you encounter the revelation that it is when you understand that you're in charge of your schedule. It's like we do things a certain way. It's like I eat this for breakfast at this time, and I have to do this in the evening, and I need time to watch TV because I want to decompress or whatever. And it's like you realize that there's no rule that says that you have to maintain that daily schedule if it's not working for you. And people get stuck in this sense of, well, it's always been that way. And it's so hard to break out of it, but it can be so liberating. So, it's the kind of thing where I would encourage anybody who's thinking of making a lifestyle change to understand that, the I don't have time thing, it's like, take a look at how you're scheduling your days, because you might be in a place where you have a little bit of more fluff or things that aren't serving you than you think that you do. So in any case, it's that's the first and sort of primary fatal mistake that people make in terms of any kind of change to anything is, I don't have time, or it doesn't work that way. It's that old saying about doing what you've always done to get what you always have. So, I mean, I would imagine for you that your daily life before this realization versus now are very different, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely.
What would a day for you generally look like?
A day for me generally looks like waking up, meditating, and then I take my dog on a walk to get sunlight on my face, because it's a great way to regulate your circadian rhythms, and then come back, work out. And it's just a quick workout. Like I have maintained, I just do 30 minutes of high intensity interval training. And then the days that I don't do that, I just do a little bit of yoga. It takes no more than 30 minutes. And then I eat breakfast and I start my day.
Yeah. I think that...
and that's like my morning routine.
Mm-hmm. I think that holistic lifestyle changes are very underrated as far as mental and emotional health for people. I think that changing your behavior and your input and your output can be tremendously healing. I also want to be understanding and respectful, because I know that for a lot of people, they are going through more difficult things, like down to the level of dealing with serious trauma, maybe addiction, these sorts of things. And I think that there's a different approach that might be necessary, or at least a different understanding as far as like lifestyle changes and well-being and mindfulness. So, we're coming off of 2 very difficult years for potentially everybody. I think it's fair to say everybody, but everybody to varying degrees. And to somebody who's really just in a situation where, they're essentially feeling like they're fighting for survival, or they're fighting to just, keep going day to day, they might not think that looking or spending time on mindfulness and wellness would be a worthwhile investment. But what would you say in that kind of situation where somebody's really in a tough spot? Should they still be focused in these areas?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I think that one of the most important things that we could do for ourselves right now, especially with the last 2 years that we've been in, is to learn how to emotionally regulate. And meditation, going on a walk, being outside, getting a workout in, moving your body. These are all great ways to regulate our nervous system that will then allow us to emotionally regulate. And what I mean by emotional regulation is our ability to control our emotional states. I don't necessarily mean control as in you get angry and then you just say, I'm not angry anymore. But how can you choose to respond to that anger versus reacting to that anger? And for people who are dealing with trauma or addiction, those are oftentimes going to be behaviors that have been ingrained that are automatic responses. So since we've been talking about mindfulness and wellness, cultivating a mindfulness practice, that's going to help you become aware of the moments in which you are reacting versus responding. And then practicing wellness is going to allow you the space and the opportunity to move through those difficult emotions. And so if there's anything that somebody could do while they're experiencing or dealing with a lot of trauma or addiction, it would be to cultivate a wellness or mindfulness practice into their life, because that's really ultimately going to help them navigate the daily stressors that they are going through as a result of the trauma or addiction that they're experiencing.
Absolutely. And, I think it's a very powerful thing. It's a lot of it has to do with how we're wrapped up in our own identity, and that sort of change in perspective and that change in our own self-image can be extremely powerful when we're trying to come out of a dark place. So I think that there, might be a fair amount of people who are listening to this who are thinking, well, it sounds great. Mindfulness, wellness, these are things that we want to focus on. Now what? And of course, we're all about giving people practical advice that they can be using today. So if, for example, I'm saying, all right, you've convinced me, I want to do it, what do I do?
I gotta think about that for a second. Okay, now that you've made the decision, what do you do? I would say that the biggest thing for me when I got to the place of being like, okay, I want to make a change, was to really sit down and look at my life and to ask myself what isn't working, or what it is that needs improvement. Because I think that the moment that we really start to look at what isn't working for me or what needs improvement, 2 really beautiful things happen. The first thing is that we step into a state of awareness. And in that, we are given the opportunity to accept that which is happening in our life, and to kind of accept, okay, yeah, this isn't like really working out for me, or I could do better in this. And so the moment that we do that, we kind of step into a place of what I like to call receptivity. So we're more likely to try new things, or to ask people who are maybe living a different life than us, what we can do to make changes. So I think that for somebody who wants to cultivate more wellness or mindfulness in their life is to get in touch with people who are living a life that is in alignment with where they want to go.
Absolutely. No, it's powerful stuff. I think we've got probably just a few more minutes for today's program, but I definitely love this kind of question, so I've got one more thing to throw at you. You have been deep into the lived out personal study of mindfulness and wellness for a while now, and I wonder if you could give us what's something that you've learned that surprised you about this?
Something that surprised me about mindfulness or wellness?
Yeah.
I would say the biggest thing that has surprised me is how interconnected our physical bodies are with our mental and emotional bodies. Like, I would say that, like, I've come into contact with different literature or different conceptual ideas of the mind-body connection, and you kind of learn a lot about that a little bit in like high school and some philosophy classes if you're taking that in college and stuff. But until you've really lived it out, I don't feel like you really understand like how deeply interconnected our physical bodies are connected to our mental and emotional bodies, and vice versa. Our mental and emotional bodies connected to our physical bodies. Like, I've noticed that when I'm sick, for example, I'm more vulnerable to kind of negative thinking or feeling alone or not feeling like enough versus right after a workout where I'm just like, I'm Superwoman. I can do anything. And then also the quality of my thoughts, how positive or how empathetic or how compassionate I can be for myself, and how that translates into my physical well-being. So my ability to sleep, my ability to focus or to have energy is affected by the thoughts that I'm thinking or my ability to move through my emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think that's really great stuff. I wish we had more time, but I think we're probably going to wrap up this one. If people are listening and they're interested, where can they find you to learn more?
Yes. So I have an Instagram page. It's called Mindful Mego. Also, I have a Facebook page, also Mindful Mego. And if you're looking to get in contact with me, you can also reach out at mindfulmego@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all for listening to this latest episode of Pathways and Means. We just want to remind you guys that we know the business is important. Obviously, the arts are important. We love the creativity here, but you're important too. So be sure that you're taking the time to listen to yourself, be mindful, take care of your well-being, stay safe and stay happy out there this year. It's going to be a good one, but we got to be friendly to ourselves just like we're friendly to each other. So don't forget your needs. Don't forget how you're feeling, and pay a little bit of attention and take the time. I promise it's worth it. Megan, thank you for joining us, and it's been a wonderful conversation.
Likewise.
Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to Pathways and Means wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to learn more about CPM and how to grow creatively into the future, visit creativepathwaysandmeans.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, where we post daily content and connect and engage with creators like you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.